My guest for the morning, Abraham Maliba, is a legal practitioner. He's a member of the NDC. Thanks for joining me, Abraham.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, how was your weekend?
Quite well.
Okay, and I also have alongside him Rodalyn Imoro Ayana, who is the second vice chair of the CPP. Oh, how are you?
I'm fine.
It's been a while.
Yes, but
yeah, you doctor. You traveled?
No, I've been around. Okay. I've been quite busy.
We haven't been calling you, have we?
Yes, you have.
Okay, so now we will.
You've not been doing well with the ladies.
Isaac Ameko, from now, every week, I expect her in the studio. All right, so let's look at the issue that we have to talk first about. The finance minister will be addressing Parliament, presenting the budget before parliamentarians and to the general public on Wednesday. We'll be talking about that. But now, the Catholic Bishops' Conference, and this corruption is ravaging our society. It's coming from a communique they issued at the end of their plenary that was convened from over the weekend, okay? And this is what they say, and the story is on page 3. Says the Catholic Bishop Conference has stated that present-day Ghana is openly and pervasively corrupt. It said the bishops had time and again spoken about the twin evil of bribery and corruption in Ghana, but they regret to know that these evils continue to ravage every fabric of the Ghanaian society, and these were contained in the communique. And it's again about corruption, etc. It seemed to be a pervasive issue. It doesn't seem to go away.
I think that there's more publicity, there's more light being thrown on corruption now than ever. It is not as if corruption is on the ascendancy. It's just that we have the more media outlets that is reporting on these cases every now and then. If you want me to support what I've said with evidence, we're once told that corruption started from Adam. So this is a clear indication that there's corruption. Corruption has been reversed. But now the reportage is such that there's much more emphasis on corrupt practices. I think that it is a good thing to have the media focusing on acts of corruption, because we have no idea as to how much we lose through corrupt practices. So I'm all out for it. I think that it is good for the media to still focus on corruption and to highlight it and expose it. This coming from the Catholic Bishops' Conference, I want to commend them. I have read their communique. They have done a balanced work. What they did was to commend government for fighting corruption by saying that it is not enough. Government should intensify the effort. And then also they talked about their own congregants, saying that some of these corrupt men and women are Catholics, and I say Catholic, they are Christians, and for that matter, they think that Christians should desist from doing that. I think this is holistic, where government is fighting it, the church is fighting it, faith-based organizations are all fighting it. That, for me, is the approach to go. But to single out government alone cannot fight corruption, even though government can take the lead in fighting against corruption.
That's very true. I think we've talked about corruption a lot lately. It's not the question of the corruption that is bothering Ghanaians. I think it's what we do, how we handle the corruption. Because somehow you get people that are guilty of certain crimes and no one knows what happens to them. There's no punishments. No one really understands the whole scenario, because it's not enough to form commissions, committees and stuff to look into issues, and at the end of the day you do not do anything about it. That is what the Ghanaian is worried about. Corruption is been seen to be an age-long problem. It's been with us for a very long time. Maybe now we are talking about it. It's always been there. And when we talk about corruption, people tend to think that it's just government, but it's not government. Within ourselves, we all behave in some corrupt form or the other. Because when you give bribe to the policeman to get away from a crime, you are corrupting the policeman, and you are corrupt yourself. You understand? If you go around buying things that you know that you can't afford, but you're getting it cheap in some way, you are corrupting yourself. You are receiving gifts from people that you know cannot afford those gifts. You know that you are corrupting them somehow. You understand? So for me, corruption is not new. Like I was reading Kwesi Pratt, he was saying that, look, our churches, just like the bishops are saying, I agree with them. Even in churches, in our mosque, everywhere, we give room to those who show money. When
A
they
lot
come
of
in,
opulence.
yes, when they come in the big cars, we give them the front row. We make them chairman for functions, and you're supposed to come and donate big. And we're having it, you know, actually eat into our very fabric. Because you look at DCEs and MCs. I was reading one, I think one paper, and a DCE from one of the northern regions had spent so much for funerals and whatnot, and he was asking, do you expect me to take that money from my pocket? But do you have to go to your funeral and use the people's money to give out?
But he's a politician in many respects, and he needs also to be very much popular.
No, but it doesn't mean that you spend an assembly's money that's meant for development to go and give us the funeral donations and the likes. But this is the type of situation that we find ourselves in. Churches are preaching wealth instead of the word. You understand? People are beginning.
Through their prosperity
yes,
messages.
this is a prosperity messages. You must, if you get up, and let's ask ourselves. We find women going to churches from Monday to Monday. You know, morning, afternoon, evening, they are there all night, everything. And then you end up saying, look, there's nothing for me to do. How do you expect to earn anything if you're going to church Monday to Monday? And you open the media is up and hyping them. You get all manner of people on the stations telling us about how to get rich quick through Jesus Christ. It doesn't make sense. So corruption, we must...
So you're saying as a society, we're also festing all these...
We are festing all those things.
You know, over the weekend, I made a point at a news file that you find that from Monday to Friday, people engage in corrupt acts in their various offices. Then Sunday, they go to church. And they are given front row. There are some Saturdays church goers. They are given front row. And they are given that kind of recognition. Now, it tends to inspire others to say that if I am rich, it doesn't matter the way I become rich, I'll also be given that recognition. So again, it goes down to, and the Ghanaian society, look, when this Shiraj matter came up, and the lady said she had no house, I was shocked to hear people say, people in high places, how can she be a lawyer of that standing and has no house?
At this age, she doesn't have a house.
So we feed our public servants with some perception that at a certain point you must get a house, you must get this, you must get that. So what is the alternative? If my salary cannot, then I have to dip my hands into the national corporate. So our own people, and they see you as a failure. If you retire and you don't have those
society
things,
sees you
as a failure. So our perception must change as a people. We must begin to reward people who sacrifice and don't dip their hands into the coffers.
Over the last couple of decades, or let's say over the last decade and a half, especially when we consolidate our practice of democracy in the Fourth Republic, we've always focused on the politicians, and all the media attention has been on the performance of the politician in public office and how they tend to embezzle, etc. But the last few years has also given us an indication that long-serving public officials, really, who work with the public service, could be contributory factors. And indeed, as regimes change, they tend to show a lot more opportunities for the next politician to either embezzle, etc. What's your comment on that very scenario?
Indeed, what you have just said was eloquently, illustrated by the Judgment Death Commission hearings. You realize that most of those who appeared there were public servants who had engaged in one act of malfeasance or the other. Normally, the politician will only be the one who will be at the tail end of the corrupt act. But corruption in the public sector is engineered by the public servant, those who are in the civil service. Now,
the long-standing
civil servants, they are those who keep the purse, because they are those who must engineer the paperwork before it even gets to the politician. So yes, they are also neck deep in it, and in fact, we should begin to shift our focus on them. And then I would think that when we do that, because the focus is too much on the politician, leaving them, and they are also creating havoc. Yes.
Okay, so I think what you should say is that the focus should be on both.
Yeah, we should also.
Too much?
Yeah, we should
so
also.
It's as if that we should reduce the focus here.
We should also
turn
our focus on them. Yes.
Okay.
Roland, I would say that, look, the focus is on the politician for a good reason.
A very good reason.
For a very good
valid
reason.
reason.
Yes. You know, you come across CEOs who feel that they will have to donate or make do with some funding for a political party by virtue of the fact that that political party
in our country indirectly.
Yes.
Because they don't do it publicly.
They don't do it publicly. You understand? So if you are a CEO and you know that you've been put there to make sure that you are able to fund a political party for putting you in that position, by all means, you do all manner of things to get that funding. You understand? So we have CEOs and managers and stuff who somehow have to bend the rules certain times to be able to fund political parties. And that is also not good enough. You understand? If we leave the civil servants out and the public servants out of our political dealings, it will be fine. But then we take it to their doorsteps. I mean, when you look at the, I keep saying that I don't believe that the National Service Secretariat, for instance, the boss, all the money that he's supposed to have taken, I will not say that he probably just did it for himself. You understand? I might say that, look, there were some other hands involved. Probably he had to send money to other places.
Perhaps we don't know.
Perhaps we don't know. These are some of the things.
That's speculative.
But it's speculative. But these are things that you hear about the underdoings and the dealings and things that go on. So somehow we have to start with the political heads. When the political heads are clean and strict, and have a mind of certain things right, the other ones will toe the line. That's the way I see it.
Okay. At what point can the politician perhaps purge, if it's a public service, etc.? Can we as a country have, let's say, a political regime that can come in, win power, and say, well, for the next 4 years, beyond all the things or beside all the things as a party or as a government we're supposed to do, we're also going to make sure that our civil service or our society is rid of corruption, and so we're going to have adequate prosecution of perhaps.
You see, we need to make corruption a high-risk venture.
How do we do that?
Now, is to
because now we have a judgment debt commission, we have other investigations that have been undertaken.
Yes, but under our laws are rated in 3 categories. We have first-degree felony, second-degree felony, and then misdemeanors. You'll be surprised where we have kept corruption. It's at misdemeanor. That shows our level of commitment towards fighting corruption as a people. So I'm saying that make it a high-risk venture. Send it to first-degree felony. Because I think last week I was here and telling you that before somebody engages in acts of corruption, he looks at, if I'm caught, how many years will I spend in prison, and can I come back and continue my loot and enjoy my loot? They do all these permutation calculations.
So when they're taking big.
Exactly. They
so
do all this.
When they go, they can't come back.
Exactly.
And so you're saying the regulations, all the laws are not deterrent enough.
They are not deterrent enough. For me, we will need to raise the bar and ensure that it is a high-risk venture. Because before you venture into it, you will calculate. And it's just like armed robbery. Before they go in, they calculate to see whether they will succeed or not. And when they succeed, what is their loot, what is their bumper harvest during that period. So they do the same thing. So for me, let's make it a high-risk venture. That is one way of engaging. And then also, let's begin to reward public servants. Recently, there was a policeman who was rewarded by the IGP for refusing a bribe. Normally, you would say that this shouldn't be because police are supposed to refuse bribes. But it's an exceptional case because the norm is that we all agree that at the various checkpoints, they take bribes. But this is one policeman who has refused, and the IGP had to use him as an example and awarded him. So let's begin to do that. And people will begin to see that there's more life after not being corrupt, because we are thinking that the future is unknown and we are afraid. So people begin to engage in corrupt practices so that they can secure their future. But you can also live without being corrupt.
Anyway,
you don't agree?
I guess so.
But Rhoda, I've heard various arguments beside what he said that our laws, despite all the things he's talking about, the first-degree felony, second-degree, and then misdemeanors, and the deterrent ones just at the bottom misdemeanors, we still have regulations that are deterrent enough to stop people in public office, especially from undertaking crime. Yes. For example, at the Occupy Ghana, Imani corruption events that took place before the close of the last week, we've had Ace and Kuma who came out to adequately outline what the regulations and the laws are.
Well, like I said, It's the implementation. It's punishing those who have committed those things that is our major problem. It's not that we don't know them. We know them. They publish it. Such and such a person has done this. Such and such a group has done this. And yet nothing is done to them. So you encourage others to do it. You see, and he's talking about rewarding. I look at the rewarding facts to mean that we should pay our workers well. Let's pay the public servants well.
Really?
Yes. You see, when people normally think about the future.
You know, for what we pay the public sector workers, 600,000 of them already eaten into our domestic revenue collection. So I don't know whether it's reward that will be the best incentive to deter people from not undertaking corruption.
No, you see, for the Ghanaian or for any human being, when you are in a working position, you're actually thinking of when you exit, my exit. What's going to happen when I go on retirement? And there are people in this country who go on retirement and get 6,000 pension. You understand? What can 6,000 do when you've been paid such meager salaries from the beginning and you cannot even put up a house to place your head in? So what happens? What do we see when we vote in our MPs? The first 6 months, what we hear is land grabbing. For instance, everybody is grabbing a piece of land. Yes, that's the perception. It's like
that's the perception.
That's the perception. You've
encountered some.
Well, I've encountered some. But
when you make some of these comments, I just want you to put them into perspective.
I've encountered some, but you know, but it's a known thing that immediately you come in, the first thing is that you can't leave your 4 years without maybe a plot or without a house. You understand? Anyone would do the same if you had the opportunity. You get what I'm saying? So if you put someone in a position and that person feels that, look, I'm going to work maybe 30 odd years. Look at this 2-tier pension. What do you think it's about? It's about the meager salaries that all those workers are earning and trying to put something away for their, you know, for their exit, and they feel that's not being managed properly. We are doing certain things that is just not right. We are putting people in places, we're not paying them well. We must start finding ways and means of paying people well. I mean, that's the way I see it. As a government, we should try and bring the right investments to bring in the right kind of monies that we expect to run the economy, and somehow find a way to pay people well. People are just not being paid properly, and that is why they're dipping their hands left and right.
It's a very controversial.
It's a controversial. I differ a bit because see, there's no study in the world that has said that the better people are paid, the less corrupt they are. There's no. Yeah. In fact, if you want, let's take our own situation.
But are you not more likely to move towards a certain position where you're likely to record less embezzlement or corruption cases?
No,
because somebody is better incentivized. If
that person is a pathological corrupt person, he will continue his act. Look, the police were the first to enjoy the single spine, but the week that they started enjoying it, I'm not sure they stopped taking the 1 city, 1 city.
Indeed, the media showed they didn't.
They did it. So there's no, you see, it is attitude now.
Okay. So how do we change the attitudes then?
Probably.
Is it just conscience?
Probably. I have indicated that, you know, I teach as well. I have been telling my students that if you start cheating here, you are the same person who become the Minister of Finance. So it's not that whilst you are becoming the Minister of Finance, your life is changing. If you start cheating and you find ways of getting exam papers before you write, and you cheat, you are transferring it into public life. So education at that level is key. I'm saddened that some schools, you have the school authorities actually collaborating with the students to give them exam papers. What are you teaching them?
Indirectly giving them some questions at the end of the day when they go to the exam while it's there.
Yeah,
so it becomes
giving them answers.
It becomes part of them.
So you're saying it's a societal problem.
It's a societal attitude now. You see, much as what she's saying makes a lot of sense, but there's no study that says that. I know people who cannot determine the extent of their wealth. They don't know the number of cars they have. They don't know the number of houses they have, but they are still corrupt. What do you want again? To buy the car that you don't know how much you have. So it is attitudinal. And I think that sometimes it goes to the level of being sick. If you have engaged in corrupt practices and you have amassed so much wealth and you are still engaged in it, it isn't that because you are hungry, that's why you did it. It means that now, it is now part of your lifestyle. So the attitude is for me, the conduct is for me what is more than even increasing salaries.
The person is getting away with it. That's why he's still amassing.
So now, the accusation on the political leaders, especially the party that is always in power, is that you're not doing enough. When you're in position, when you are in opposition, you tend to be very much more loudmouth, always bickering and always criticizing. But when you're in government, you don't seem to do that. How do we also tend to tackle some of these inexigencies?
It's a very difficult scenario because let's just use our NDC,
the current scenario, where we have the MPP, giving a hard time to the ruling NDC.
That's it. And then the NDC also taking it in. You see, I'm asking myself, a party that a few, let's say in about 2 years ago, couldn't afford to pay rent for their office, suddenly has got a new magnificent office. You understand?
It's good for our democracy.
Good for democracy.
Somebody will say.
Oh yes. And so it is also good that what you think you deserve, some other people deserve. The Ministry of Information Office is a CPP bona fide national headquarters. Have they given it back to us?
Built from what resource?
Built from dues. The very same way that the NDC can claim that Friends built that edifice for them, for their office. The same way we within the CPP can claim that our members paid dues. We even have people coming out with the fact that we pay dues to build that office that is housing the Ministry of Information, and we are still asking for it and no one wants to give it to us. And it's not only that, it's littered all across the country. You understand what I'm saying? Now, when you get to that level, where right now, I just read this morning, the General Secretary of the NDC is saying that they're going to build guest houses, they are going to build offices in all the regions. We have offices in all the regions. We have offices. We had businesses to run our political party, the CPP, and all those ones were confiscated. You understand what I'm saying?
So your point is?
So my point is, political parties by themselves can actually make money through their own efforts. They don't need to dip their hands in public office.
Is that what's happening?
That is, yes. What is happening now is what I am saying, that we need to investigate those kinds of issues.
To ensure transparency? To
ensure transparency. If one party could not do it, that's what I'm trying to get. If one party could not do it, could not contribute to build an office, I don't think there's any other party that should be able to do that.
Let me ask you this. How does the posture of the top parties in Ghana tend also to give or encourage corruption in our society?
You know what? Let's look at Parliament, the two of them. I don't see any difference between the NDC and the MPP now.
Well, yes, they are parliamentarians.
It's like, yeah, it's like you scratch me, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. You understand what I'm saying? When it's something to do with us, the people of this country, our parliamentarians just sort of like, oh, well, you know, they go aye, and then it's off. When it has to do with them, they're all on board. You understand what I'm saying? We need to get a new kind of parliamentarian who is thinking for Ghana and not for self. And we need to get a new leader who is thinking Ghana and not for self. And these are the things that are lacking right now.
Okay, I know you also have an aspiration if to become a member of parliament, because definitely that will be one of the reasons why you will be in politics, to serve your people. But in serving your people, how would it not happen that, well, somebody needs to make sure he or she bypasses the normal protocols to get a passport, get a visa, get access to some government land that could be sold through the proper channels, of course. But as to who get access and all that, how can you say I'm in this position and I will not help anybody if I know that's the norm?
You will not say you will not help anybody. What you will do is to not cut short, not short-circuit the process.
And if you don't do that, you become very much unpopular among your constituents.
No.
I'm just creating scenarios.
No, what you do is to facilitate that person to get in touch with the process. So, license office, you can call somebody in there to help that person.
That's connection.
To help that person. No. To help that person to go through the process. You are not saying that
the very thing that we're talking about. That's
no. What I'm saying is that you get him, because people think that you can go and use the Goro boys, and that is not acceptable. Then you can get that person to go through the process and get him go through the training, the testing, and all those things. But you will not necessarily ask that person to jump 2 or 3 steps and get the license. That I will not do. You know my stance on corruption in this country. You know it. I have fought the judiciary where the devils fear not to go to. I have done that.
But this is
to the extent that
you haven't done that in a while.
No, to the extent that my license was nearly revoked. So I still stand for that. What I've noticed ever since I became political conscious, and I became political conscious knowing my political environment during the Achampo regime. Buzia, no, I wasn't so much. What I have noticed is that governments are overthrown, even the military regime, and then voted out based on corruption. Yes. That has been it. You hear Rawlings overthrew Liman because there was corruption. A Champon's regime, the overthrow of Buzia was corruption. Every NDC used corruption against Kufuor. Now, so it's corruption that has always been trumpeted as the basis for which there must be a change of government. Now the question is, how come that corruption has always been repetitive and that there's no end in it? And I'll come back to the same point. We need to ensure, because even the political leadership cannot do anything beyond, people are in court now answering to some corrupt practices, but if the punishment is not deterrent enough, it will not deter somebody who is in that office now. So you can have prosecutions, yes, but if the laws do not say that, and the judges are also limited by the laws. No judge can just look at your nose and say that because he dislikes you, he will give you 100 years. No,
Abraham,
it must be by law.
Do you think that politicians, all the political elite, as we've had them maybe from 1992, are really committed to ridding our society of corruption, or perhaps even the public service of corruption?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that no president comes into power and sets his mind
that I want to
loot the
wealth of the country. Okay.
Now, when he gets into power, there are now some interest groups that he has to be mindful of. The next point is, how does he crack the whip? And that is where I think that most of our leaders have fallen short. But luckily for us, under this regime, we have not seen instances where the government is shielding its own. Indeed, of all the things you are hearing, the JIDA, the Black Star corrupt practices, the National Service, are all at the instance
so you're saying that
because
the media is giving a lot more publicity to these things that government is doing,
and then also the government itself fighting its own people. And I'm saying that the NSS matter, for instance, was at the instance of the president, this expose. And I'm saying that the prosecution of some people under JIDA is from government. I'm saying that the sole commissioner was government. And I'm saying that the current Black Star, this rot of people buying tomatoes in Brazil, how would we have known about it if not because of this commission?
Well, granted that.
So I am saying that, yeah, if somebody says that the fight is not enough, I may go with that person. But to say that quarter, nothing is done, I wouldn't agree.
So you're saying it's better something is done than
something
nothing
is being done. Yes.
But sincerely, can we have a political leader that will come and say, I want to live like the Uruguayan president, live in a shack, and not care about wealth, not care about how the party in which I grew up, in terms of politically, and I got elected as a candidate for that party and got elected by the people. I cannot serve the interests of the... Can we have somebody who will be sincere enough like that?
I think so. I believe so. I think that...
Can we have somebody who, at the end of his term, will only have a house or two?
Yes, we can have somebody.
Based on 30 years of working either in a public service as a businessman or as president.
We can have someone.
I think Kuma didn't have a house. So.
He didn't have anything.
Yes, now we know that he didn't have.
Yes, now we know he didn't have. But what
Then we were told that
he had millions in the Swiss bank and whatever. But then I believe that we can still have a selfless president for this country. And I believe that person would be a self-made person who has actually acquired things for himself and will only decide to go into politics to serve, you know, Ghana and not to amass wealth. We have to start looking at our leaders. I don't understand why a president should even come and want to enrich himself. Considering the fact that when you're leaving, you apart from being paid a salary, when you're leaving, you go with so many houses, so many cars, you practically go with everything that you've enjoyed. So why don't you just sit there and make up your mind that you're going to make this country better instead of trying to get extra? That's what I don't understand. Because when you leave the scene, you go with everything that you are enjoying. So why should you want to build 10 or 20 houses here or abroad anywhere? I don't see it. So, but I believe that out there in this country, we have people who will give us selfless leadership. And one of these days we'll get such person. And I am very sure that being the first party that gave Kwame Nkrumah to Ghana, the CPP will provide such a leader in this country.
Selfless leader.
A selfless leader.
Who will go out of office.
Who will go out of office.
Not have one house.
And no, we'll have the house that he built by his own sweat. And the business that he managed by himself, and not come and develop a house or business for himself.
It's a very serious statement you make, considering the fact that you're even going to have multinationals and other international conglomerates that will want deals in your country, offer you millions to make sure that your ministers make approvals.
Look,
yes.
Didn't we have Professor Mills being told?
Well,
we're
Professor
told
Mills.
by...
Professor Mills.
Let's not forget,
yes,
it's not too far.
Different, right?
It seems to be different.
Professor Mills,
But there was the perception that those around him...
No,
but we're
talking about leaders, you know. We were told by Kwame Pieni that he can vouch for Professor Mills. That he was in a meeting.
But Kwame Pieni said, but not his people.
Not his people.
With, you know, when envelopes, multinationals came to him, left envelopes, and when they left, and he saw them, he called them back from the castle on top. Contrary to when the castle was used as a place to collect bribes, he this time rather called the people back to come and take their...
That's political talk.
No, that's not political talk, we have been told. So at least Professor Mills is that kind of person that you are talking about in this. So we can have. We have it.
We can have. You see, and no one talks about Prof. Mills. You understand what I'm saying? That's how it is.
Yes.
So we should be a president that will live with, you know, for enough for Ghanaians not to talk about you.
Now